This is CBC Here and Now.
Spending spree. Senior staff at MUN pay thousands for retreats and meals.
Protest fishery. Crab boats set pots in a Quebec fishing zone.
Speaking up and speaking out. A bullying victim takes a stand.
Onshore flow, which means cool temps, dominant clouds and drizzle for most as we roll into Tuesday, but some hot spots. I'll let you know where they are, plus your long range coming up.
Well, Memorial University's finances have been under the microscope for the past 2 weeks. Tonight, a copy of hosting expenses by senior administration has been obtained by CBC.
Yeah, and it shows thousands spent on retreats and fine dining. Here now's Ryan Cook has our story.
A senior administrator with a penchant for golf courses, a search for new staff that cost thousands and hired nobody. These are just a couple examples of spending by senior staff at Memorial University. 8 retreats hosted by former Provost David Wardlaw came in just under $24,000, all at golf courses. The events between 2011 and 2014 catered senior staff. The school says those costs do not include golf, but do include accommodations and catering. Documents show hundreds of catered events paid for by the university. Breakfast meetings, lunch meetings, dinner meetings, all covered. Senior administrators took guests to some of the finest restaurants in St. John's, where outings cost as much as $132 a person. 2 weeks ago, Provost Noreen Golfman told reporters the dinners were necessary.
We have candidates, high-level researchers who come in here. We're not feeding them peanut butter sandwiches. We are doing what professionals do.
In September 2014, Golfman took over the role of provost on an interim basis. A half-dozen catered meetings were held to determine who the new provost would be. The final meeting was held at the Sheraton, where 15 people stayed for a long weekend. In the end, after $5,000 spent, they stuck with Golfman. We've twice requested to speak with a member of the senior administration at MUN. So far, we've heard nothing. For Here and Now in St. John's, I'm Ryan Cook.
Well, the level of discontent in the province's fishery continues to grow. The latest example today on the Northern Peninsula. Here Now's Terry Roberts is following developments and joins us live. Terry?
Well, yes, Debbie, this is truly turning into a season of discontent in the Newfoundland and Labrador fishery. We all know about the hunger strike we had just a few days ago, an 11-day hunger strike by Richard Gillett. Then we had angry fishermen storming the DFO building here in St. John's. Well, today, a protest fishery on the Northern Peninsula. Fishermen say there's growing desperation in the industry over quota cuts in crab. Industry for more than 2 decades. So this was the scene today. 9 crab boats setting their pots in a zone usually allocated primarily for Quebec fishermen. DFO allowed it to happen, even though they were on the water and in the air monitoring the situation. Here's how a Fish NL representative explains the situation that led to today's protest.
They're not asking for crab licenses, and they're not asking for quota. They're not asking, to take Quebec out of the zone. All they're asking is to be able to go there in this zone, which is in the mouth of our harbors, and catch their crab quota. Quebec comes here and catches their quota in a couple of hauls. So, I don't think it's too much to ask.
So this is the situation. We got Zone 13 right off the mouth of the harbors in Port Saunders and Port au Choix. About 40 boats there, almost all of them from Quebec. And about 30 miles away, Zone 12. I'm told that the local boats from the Northern Peninsula have to steam to these areas where there's practically no crab. So they have to steam through these crab-rich areas and go to an area that's practically barren. So today they dropped their own pots. I'm told they actually landed some crab, but no action was taken by DFO. Now, we spoke to our provincial fisheries minister today and asked him for his response, and here's what he had to say.
I just reached out to the federal minister's office and I spoke with somebody there, and I hope to speak with the minister later today and talk about the challenges that we're seeing in that region at this time.
So a solution. What's the solution here? Well, some of those fishermen told me today they want a sit down. They want a meeting with Premier Dwight Ball. They want both fisheries ministers there, provincial and federal. They say they understand that they're not going to solve every problem, but they at least want upper echelon people like the politicians in Ottawa and St. John's to listen to their views. Reporting live from St. John's, I'm Terry Roberts for Here and Now.
Well, still with political news, if you've ever wanted to go into the Premier's office and ask him a question about the budget, well, we're going to give you the chance, at least virtually. Tomorrow night, I'm hosting a Facebook Live chat with the Premier. It'll be starting at 7 o'clock Newfoundland time, and we'll be in his office. You can write in with your questions, and I'll put as many of them to him as I can. We'll also be live on Facebook and YouTube, and we'll play some of the best bits Wednesday night on Here and Now.
Well, 2 young people were seriously injured after this fire destroyed a house in Natwashish early this morning. RCMP received the call at around 6 a.m. An 11-year-old and a 17-year-old were airlifted to St. John's in serious condition. Residents tell CBC that the abandoned house is often used by young people sniffing gas. RCMP are not saying if that has anything to do with this blaze. Firefighters reportedly had to drag a fire hose over 100 meters as the hydrant near the residence wasn't working. Meanwhile, in Corner Brook this afternoon, a house was gutted by fire. The call came in around 1 p.m. There was no one at home, but there were a lot of animals on site. Firefighters managed to get 5 of the pets out, but at least 2 dogs and 2 cats died. In a statement this afternoon, the Red Cross says a woman in her 70s was left homeless by that fire and is now staying with her daughter.
Well, in national news, residents of Gatineau near Ottawa are into the second week of watching the river levels rise and rise. This is what it looked like today, just a kilometer away from Parliament Hill. Officials say a dam downriver has recorded the highest level in 100 years. That's not going to come as a surprise to the hundreds of people who've been forced to leave their homes. The one piece of good news, officials say that the water should start receding, at least in a couple of days.
Well, a popular YouTuber who spoke out about hospital wait times is now recovering at home. In late April, Paul Short suffered a heart attack while he and his wife Kathy were filming a video for their YouTube channel. After waiting a week in hospital for additional tests, Kathy brought the story to the media. Then on Friday, Eastern Health brought Paul to St. John's, where the test was finally completed. Kathy says the test showed that her husband was lucky to be alive. She says the pair plan to continue using their social media platforms to talk about access to health care.
A St. John's lawyer has been stripped of his right to practice. The Law Society disbarred Michael Drover last week for misusing hundreds of thousands of dollars of clients' money. The incidents happened between 2011 and 2014. The Law Society says Drover also tried to mislead it during the investigations into his actions. He's been disciplined twice before by the Law Society for failing to avoid a conflict of interest and for failing to protect a client's property.
A letter that no 14-year-old girl should have to write was entered into evidence today at a civil trial in St. John's. In it, Jane Doe, an alias, tells her father about her sexual relationship with a much older man. Here Now's Glenn Payette reports, and a warning, there is graphic language used in this story.
Jane Doe has gone to trial to sue the Department of National Defense and the Attorney General of Canada, among others, because she was sexually abused for months when she was 13 and 14 years old by a cadet leader. She eventually worked up her courage and told her father about the abuse in a letter. It's probably bad that I was having sex with a 33-year-old guy. Hell yeah, it is. The man, Travis Kendall, pleaded guilty to sexual interference and was sentenced to 21 months in prison. She said they confided in each other and she trusted him and believed she had fallen in love with him. She told the court she wanted to end it when she stopped being delusional. In the letter to her father, she wrote, "I'm scared to death to tell you this. He had been illegally screwing me for months. It got to the point where I told him it's over, but he just wouldn't let go." Her father was the one who went to the police. Her letter continues. It's tearing me up right now. I know the police will likely be involved. I don't want you to murder him. That would only get you in jail. Please be careful, Dad. She ended the letter with, please don't push me for questions right now. Hugs and kisses. I'm sorry for all this. Years after the abuse, the woman said she had been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. Lawyers for the Attorney General of Canada and the Department of National Defence will be calling witnesses later in the week in an attempt to show why those bodies aren't responsible for Kendall's actions. Glenn Payette, CBC News, St. John's.
A lengthy court case involving a landlord in Gander is headed back to St. John's. Darlene Wheeler is facing fraud charges for renting rooms in a home that she didn't own, and they were rooms that were already rented out. Wheeler's trial was supposed to start this morning, but the Crown said the case is being moved to St. John's for a speedy disposition. She's expected to enter a guilty plea later this month.
Well, the praise keeps coming for Come From Away. The musical, based on Gander's response to grounded planes on 9/11, has won 5 Outer Critics Circle Awards, including Best New Broadway Musical, putting it in a tie for most overall wins with the Hello Dolly revival. The show was honored with Outstanding Book of Musical, Director, Featured Actress, and Sound Design. The musical is also up for 7 Tony Awards, and those will be given out on June 11th. And it wasn't cheap for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to bring 600 people to see the show in New York. Documents show government paid almost $30,000 for the tickets. That works out to about $50 a ticket. The Prime Minister's office notes that is a significant discount compared to what they're selling for at the box office. Hundreds of the tickets went to UN representatives. A spokesperson told CBC that international outreach is an important part of advancing and protecting Canadian interests.
Well, speaking of awards, CBC Newfoundland and Labrador picked up some hardware over the weekend. It was the 36th Annual Atlantic Journalism Awards. They were held for the first time in St. John's at the Convention Centre. It was hosted by St. John's Morning Show host Anthony Germain and NTV News anchor Lynn Burry. Rob Antle won gold for radio enterprise reporting for his in-depth look at the finances of Iris Kirby House. Happy Valley Goose Bay reporter John Gowdy also won gold for his radio feature on a sweat lodge. And Philippe Grenier, our Radio-Canada colleague who works in St. John's, won 2 gold awards for Best Video Journalist and Best Television Feature. CBC NL also took home 5 silver awards.
Hurricane hunters from the U.S. were in Gander yesterday for their only Canadian stop, and they have an important warning for the public.
I ran into some trouble. I lost my job, lost everything, lost my home.
To help those in need, the Salvation Army is raising money to build its new Center of Hope in St. John's. That story a little later in the show.
This weather update is brought to you by the Take Charge Business Efficiency Program. Over 400 businesses have saved energy and taken charge of their bottom line. Find out how you can too.
Before we get to the weather, we have a little bit of sports news to talk about. They gave it their all, but not even the power of their fearless mascot could help them in the end.
That's right. Our CBC NL dodgeball team, the Deadly Coopers, wrapped up their season yesterday with a tournament.
They'll be looking for a new mascot.
I don't think so.
They fought hard, dodging all sorts of shots, but in the end, the team came up short in the tournament.
Yeah, the big winners of the day were the TD Green Machines, and the overall winners of the Dodge, Dive, Donate winter season were the Chucking Norrises that you see there.
The league is a fundraiser for Easter Seals, so of course the big winners are the Easter Seals Foundation, and they managed to raise a whopping $7,000. Fantastic.
That is fantastic.
Oh, Jeff Locke with the arm there.
Oh yeah,
wow.
no, our finance guy has got many hidden talents.
Yes. Now, dodgeball, inside sport, which is great this time of year. Soccer, not so much. Have a look at this picture, and you feel for the kids who are playing soccer in spring. It's just 4 degrees, and this picture was taken moments ago by Carrie Hodder on Twitter. But you feel for the parents.
I've been there.
They're not even running around staying warm.
That's right.
They have to sit on the sidelines.
Sit on the sidelines, and you know that the winter jackets are out tonight on the sidelines of the sports fields all across the metro region and across most of Newfoundland. Now, highs today did get to 16 in Badger, 17 in Deer Lake, 13 in Daniels Harbor, 15 in Corner Brook, 16 in Stephenville. It'll be a very similar setup again tomorrow, but anywhere from the northeast coast up into the coastal parts of Labrador, just very, very chilly with this onshore flow that will continue for tomorrow. Note the showers that have been rolling up over southwestern Newfoundland through the day today, not really advancing too much further north thanks to the blocking high, which, yes, is parked over Greenland and back towards the northern Labrador Sea, and it is parked there. And because of that high, we've got this onshore northeasterly flow, and the rain has been relentless this weekend over parts of the Maritimes. That will continue up into Labrador City as well, edging southwest Newfoundland tonight with a few scattered showers, but this will not be able to advance again because of this area of high pressure off to our north, this blocking high, which keeps everything stationary in terms of the weather pattern. In fact, this rain will actually retrograde back to the west tomorrow, which is, again, uncommon. But thanks to that high, things are not really moving as they should be. And that is why we have, again, the northeasterly flow, which remains relentless through Tuesday. And in fact, relentless through Wednesday into Thursday as well. Note, again, the west and southwest coast, even on Wednesday, we'll be seeing the sunshine breaking through in the warmer temperatures. We'll talk about the long range and when this pattern will start to break down, at least in the long range. So stay tuned for details on that. In the shorter term, +1 tomorrow morning in Labrador City with some rain mixed with a bit of wet snow possible. Again, showers for the southwest coast. Everywhere else it is with that northeast flow, drizzle and the risk of some freezing drizzle from St. John's up to the coast of Labrador as temperatures will hover near the freezing mark. 1 with drizzle in the morning, mainly cloudy into the afternoon, 4 on the plus side, but as warm as 6 to 9 degrees inland. Then the drizzle rolls back in for tomorrow evening. And so again, get away from the northeast coast. We're talking about 13 for Placentia Bay tomorrow, down towards the Burin Peninsula, away from onshore winds, 12 or 13 degrees there. The clouds certainly dominant with the morning drizzle and then late day drizzle arriving again for the northeast coast. Temperatures ranging from 3 to 6 degrees, and then Grand Falls, Windsor back in the 12 to 13 degree range for tomorrow. The south coast, Harbor Breton near 10 to 13 degrees. A little bit of an onshore easterly flow keeping temperatures near 7, Port aux Basques and Burgeo, but 13 to 15 degrees from the Humber Valley and into the Grossmorn area for tomorrow, Corner Brook. And again, 3-4 degrees for the northern peninsula and southeastern parts of Labrador. And note that the coast of Labrador will see, some sun breaks, but the showers will be confined to western parts of Labrador.
Well, Well, now we're going to talk about hurricanes. Most people run from them, but not these folks.
No. They take to the air and take aim for the eye of the storm.
That's right. Here and now's Chris Ensing, the luckiest man, met a team of hurricane hunters who say most people aren't prepared for the big ones.
This big beast flies right into the eyes of deadly storms.
It was kind of strange. When I went going through pilot training in the military, they taught us how to stay away from a lot of the weather hazards we have out there. We had to stay up to 20 nautical miles away, and now I'm flying right through the worst of them.
Bad storms like Igor that ripped through Newfoundland in 2010, damage beyond $100 million, taking months to clean up. Despite the power of a hurricane, the director of the Hurricane Center in the United States said people still aren't prepared.
Well, we're going to keep at this preparedness and resilience messaging until everyone is fully prepared and fully responding, and we know we've got a long way to go in that regard. More and more people, more and more infrastructure is hurricane vulnerable, all the way from Miami to Newfoundland.
That was clear just 7 months ago when the remnants of Hurricane Matthew ripped through central Newfoundland. For weather forecasters in this province, the meet and greet in Gander was a chance to remind people, prepare for the worst.
So even if we might have some of these tropical storms that just stay offshore, you only need one of those to come to make landfall or even get close to landfall to cause problems.
Sometimes when the warnings to evacuate go out, people still stay in their homes. As the pilot of this plane explains, that decision could be deadly.
I can understand some of it. People don't want to leave their property. They're scared something's going to happen. I wish they did listen to us, but every once in a while we're off by a little bit. And so the people go, well, it missed me last time, so it's probably going to miss me this time. If you look at Hurricane Katrina, which is a huge deal down on the coast in Mississippi, where we are actually from, where all these planes are stationed out of Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi. So when Katrina came through, a lot of people said, well, I'm not leaving. My home survived Hurricane Camille, so I'm fine. And then a lot of those people died.
And that's the goal of this tour, to get the public to trust the people behind this specialized weather equipment the next time they issue a warning for your community. Chris Ensing, CBC News, Gander.
You know, a lot of people aren't big into the turbulence. I think you'd have to have a pretty high tolerance for flying in order to want to go up in one of those.
Absolutely. It would be downright scary, terrifying for many flyers, but
although I think
somebody does it.
I think someone in the studio would probably enjoy a ride up there, and it's not you or me. Anyway, time now for some adorable animals. Yes, we've got a whole segment of the show because they've really been putting on a display right across the province.
Yeah, on Friday, 19 dogs flew from Happy Valley Goose Bay to Halifax, all in the search of a new home.
Yeah, the SPCA coordinated the canine transfer with Litters and Critters Shelter in Halifax.
Yeah, Lee Hill with the Happy Valley Goose Bay SPCA called the Halifax shelter to see if they could take the influx of puppies.
Oh, aren't they just adorable? They said yes, because how could you say no to that face? And they even got Maritime Air Charter to throw in the flight for free. The SPCA volunteers helped drive the pups to the airport.
Well, still in Labrador with four-legged critters, the mayor of Cartwright, that's Dwight Lethbridge, was out doing some work on this fish lodge last week.
Yeah, and he came across a little family. Have a look. There we've got Mama Bear, and if you wait for it, there's 1, 2, and 3. There's a fourth cub. He's there. Oh, there he is.
Wow, that is unusual. Lethbridge says the black bears were under an ice pan hauling back seaweed and looking for mussels and clams.
Yeah, he says he saw the group earlier this year, but he didn't have the camera ready, so I guess this time he was all prepared.
And he does say it is the first time he's ever seen a litter of 4 cubs.
And if in case you were wondering, Lethbridge says he was sitting on his snowmobile, so he was ready to take off in case those bears got any closer.
Wise move. Well, it appears to be supper time for this otter, and we just took this as our reporter Terry Robert was preparing to go on air with us. Our camera person Ted Dillon captured him having some sushi down near Harborside Park in St. John's. This was, as I said, just before we went to air, and he wanted to have that snack before heading off for a swim.
It seems appropriate, you know, when you're doing a story about fishing to have another little fisherman there before. There he goes.
Yeah.
Well, students from across the Avalon gathered to tell stories of family history at the Heritage Fair. We'll tell you a little bit more about that after the break.
Welcome back, everyone. Well, the Salvation Army is about a month into its fundraising campaign for its new Center of Hope in St. John's. The organization is hoping to raise $14 million for the building on Springdale Street, a campaign that's shining a light on the stark realities that some people are facing in their day-to-day lives. Here Now's Jen White reports.
In that situation,
you can see it in their faces.
And I have 3 kids, and I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do?
They were down, hurt, and looking for help.
I was heavily into using and alcohol abuse. So
this is really heart-wrenching to realize that people have walked that kind of journey in life, a journey that's foreign to most of us. And so first and foremost, you feel a lot of compassion and passion for these individuals. And to be able to start walking with them to a place of recovery, a place of where they will have a new hope and a new direction in life.
These are some of the stories the Salvation Army is bringing to light in its Faces of Hope campaign. For a century, thousands of people came to this building for the Army's help, but that changed in 2014. A burst pipe flooded one of its buildings. A year later, the old structures were torn down, and they moved into the basement of the church next door. The plan now turned this parking lot into the Salvation Army's new Center of Hope, a 4-story building with 20 affordable housing units and services like a food bank, a nurse practitioner, and correctional and justice services.
This is important because there are lives that need this kind of resources and this kind of a place to come to. And the Salvation Army is quite delighted that we're able to come back home because we've been here for such a long period of time, and to be able to rebuild on this location is a great blessing for the Salvation Army.
But they still have a ways to go. The campaign so far has pulled in about $6 million. The goal is another $8 million.
The fundraising campaign will continue over the next several months. The Salvation Army hopes to break ground at this site in the fall, with construction slated to start in 2018. Jen White, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, close to 200 students from across the Avalon gathered in a St. John's gymnasium this weekend, but not to play sports. Most came to tell stories about their family history at the annual Heritage Fair. Here now's Jeremy Eaton has more.
It's very important, and they get really enthused about their history, and they get excited because they learn things about their past that they didn't know, about things their grandparents or great-grandparents did.
Sidney Jones. He was my great-great-grandfather.
And who was Sidney Jones?
He was one of the 4 master watches on the SS Newfoundland in the Newfoundland sealing disaster. The night of the disaster, he managed to keep himself and his men alive.
It took me a couple hours. I had to get a lot of the information from my family. Yeah, I have a lot of ancestors who were logging, like my great-grandfather, my grandfather, and my nan had 12 brothers and sisters, so they were all loggers.
Why did you want to pick David Suzuki?
Because the work that he does for the environment and the way he's putting pressure on the government to make changes to our environment really intrigues me.
What's the one thing about Mummering that most people don't know?
There's a dark side to it.
What's the dark side of Mummering?
On June 25th, 1861, Mummering was actually illegal because of the death of Isaac Mercer of Roberts Bay.
The children are so excited about what they've done, and we like for other people to see how enthusiastic they are. And sometimes there are children that wouldn't sometimes do well in school in other areas, but they can certainly communicate about their past.
Set out to sea. We take a look at the Hebron oil project as it starts to make its move. A Torbay teen who was shamed on an ugliest girl list at school and then turned the tables on the bullies is now in a new national film about bullying called Rising Above. The documentary features Linnell Cantwell along with others who were bullied. And in an interesting twist, a number of reformed bullies reveal their stories. Here's an excerpt from Rising Above.
Life is made up of about 10% of what happens to us and 90% how we respond to it.
Some of the most violent, disgusting things I've ever seen have been on some of those message boards where people are telling other people to go kill themselves.
I walked in and my whole class was basically saying that they had had enough.
I think people bully other people because they're not happy with themselves. So because of the fact they're not happy with themselves, they feel like they need to bring other people down to their level so they can feel happy with themselves.
So instead of dealing with our own situations and our own problems personally, it's so much easier just to take it out on other people, and that's how it's all started.
I'm sorry that you'll never get the chance to know the kind of person I am.
I may not look okay on the outside, but I'm funny, nice, kind,
down to earth,
not judgmental,
accepting, helpful.
Just because we don't look perfect on the outside does not mean that we're ugly. If that's your idea of ugly, then I feel sorry for you. Like seriously, get a life.
Rising Above was screened for students this morning at the Cineplex in the Avalon Mall, followed by a question and answer session.
Don't ever think you're alone if you're being bullied.
It's been an incredible journey for Linnell. When she found out she was on the Ugliest Girls online poll, instead of crumbling, she posted a long message to the bully. It was without anger and took pity on them. That post caused a sensation and has been seen around the world. And there's more, from national speaking engagements to international media interviews. So, Linnell, a lot has happened in the past year, and now this film. What does it feel like to now watch this film?
To finally be able to see this film, it's like I've been waiting for so long to see it, and like the excitement has been building up and building up because like they started this in like October, I do believe. And here we are in May, and I've been waiting, and I've been so eager to see it. So finally being able to see it is like incredible to me, and seeing the impact that it's actually making here, and then taking it back and being like, oh my God, like it's been all over Canada so far, so that impact everywhere else is amazing too. It's like incredible to be able to see it.
You spoke with a number of students here today. What has been the reaction?
The reaction has been really positive. I was a little bit nervous because like where it's in the hometown and everybody's heard the stories, it was so positive that like I kind of want to cry a little bit. Like everybody's been so nice to me ever since seeing it. Like the questions, they were all positive questions. Like there was nothing negative as what I was expecting.
This film has a number of former bullies who've changed themselves. Why do you think it was important to hear their side of the bullying issue?
Because you need to hear, it was important because you need to hear both sides. Every documentary that I've seen about bullying so far is only about the victim. It's the victim's story, it's how the victim dealt with it. And this one's unique because it brings the bully into it. And Scott McHenry, and like he talks about how like the bullying behavior, he was doing it and he didn't realize that he was like to a degree until his classmates kind of came out and was just like, hey man, you're being really mean, I don't like it. And I think that was important to put in there because like people don't realize at times that their bullying behavior is affecting other people, and that like so having the two sides there was like important because you can see it from both angles.
You've had a lot of time to reflect on what's happened to you. Why do you think you reacted the way you did and you didn't give in to them?
I think I reacted that way because it was just like what I grew up around. Everybody was always so positive around me, and the way my parents raised me was like, don't treat others like, you know, like treat others how you would want to be treated and stuff like that. I never thought that it would go as far as it did. To be honest, while I was writing it, I never thought I'd even react like that. It was just kind of like I was typing and it was emotional, and it was like really empowering. And I clicked post and I was just like, I just did that. That's cool. Like,
what do you think you have learned over this past year or so about the power of speaking out and speaking up?
It definitely has the power to speak out and speak up. It definitely has a bigger impact than anybody could ever think. When I spoke out, I didn't think it was gonna go as big as it did. I thought I was just gonna speak out and then a week it would be forgotten about. But like, by speaking out, it's changed so many different things about my life, and I'm hoping other people's lives. So yeah, speaking out is like, you don't think what it's gonna be, but like, it's impactful.
Bullying, I think we all agree, is never going to be totally eliminated. But what is your hope for the future?
I'm hoping that people could spread more kindness. And like, I know bullying is never gonna reside itself, but like, if people could be more kind to one another, that would be amazing. If people could forgive, forget, that kind of thing, be kind. That's what I'm hoping for out of this.
I've been wondering, did you ever find out who the bully was at your school, who made that poll?
I mean, I can't say for sure that I know who it is, but there was like speculation of who it was and stuff like that. So like, I never actually got a full-on confession, like this is who did it, like this is who made you hurt and stuff like that. But like, I kind of have my idea who it is, but they're forgiven. I totally forgive them for what they did because I see their story. I'm looking past the fact that they did it to me, but like, I'm looking at what they were going through at the time that they did it. So all is good. Forgiven.
You have been changed by this whole experience. Perhaps they have been too.
I'm hoping so. I hope they never do it again.
Thanks so much for chatting with me, Linnell.
Thank you for having me in.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Well, the only thing holding back the Hebron oil platform are mooring lines and Mother Nature. The massive 750,000-ton structure is set to go out to sea, but pack ice is preventing the move. Here now's Jeremy Eaton has this report from Bull Arm.
The engineering of this is such that the structure behind us is floating at the moment, and so we'll be towing the floating structure, and then once we're sitting over the installation location, we have a controlled ballasting system that lowers it down to sit on the seabed. That we're currently connecting up to the Hebron platform. So they'll be circling around that platform, all connected up, and then they'll be able to tow it out to the field. Now, right at the moment, while we're connecting the vessels, we still have the mooring lines. So across here, you can see the mooring lines. There's 9 of those, and we have 6 of them connected at the moment that hold the platform in place. So immediately before tow, when we have the right weather and ice conditions, we'll remove those mooring lines, and then we'll be supported entirely by the tow vessels. So we have 8 tow vessels, and so there'll be 5 of them at the front that will be towing, and then there'll be 3 that will be trailing and providing some steerage. And then once we're out at the field at the installation site, those vessels will circle the platform and hold it in place as we set it down on the seabed. So the Hebron field's about 350 kilometres offshore Newfoundland, and we'll be taking about 2 weeks for the tow, but that's of course dependent on weather. Well, we're waiting on the sea ice to clear. We're still on track for starting drilling in the summer and then producing oil by the end of this year.
The weather update is brought to you by Belltone Hearing Service St. John's, helping the world hear better.
So it's not just us waiting on the weather. They're waiting on the weather for obviously that massive project and engineering. Magnificent just to see it there. But yeah, they got to wait on Mother Nature.
How is the ice looking, Ryan?
Well, not that great. And when you take a look at the forecast for this week, it's not really going to help. So what you see there, the heaviest concentration of ice, the thickest ice is in red, then medium concentration for the yellow, and then of course the lightest ice in the green. And you can see there's Hebron at Bull Arm, and of course has to track somewhere to the northeast and through that ice. And so with northeast winds all week long to get all the way here. They're going to have to go through this ice. And of course, with that northeast flow, that is not going to be helping the situation this week. So we'll obviously keep you posted on that. There is the satellite and radar picture. There's the big blocking high over Greenland, which again is directing the onshore flow here all week long, and that is going to be the name of the game as we move over the next couple of days. This area of low pressure will actually move back to the west, retrograde back to the west, and those periods of rain are going to be moving back through Labrador City tomorrow, Churchill Falls, some clearing actually into the afternoon, and the rain, that chance of some showers over southwestern parts of Newfoundland for tomorrow morning are going to be easing off as we move through, at least by midday. How about Stephenville and the Port-au-Port? Back to 15 tomorrow, just 3 and 4 degrees along that northeast coast. Warmer as you work your way away from that northeast flow. Same thing into southeastern parts of Labrador. Cool in those onshore winds. Happy Valley Goose Bay. 10 degrees, though. That wind is going to be key because it's from the east-northeast coming off upper Lake Melville. So we're going to be Lake Melville. We'll have to keep an eye on that upper Lake Melville region. I think we will see some variability for temperatures there. If you're right in those onshore winds coming off the lake, it's going to be a bit cooler. Now, there's Wednesday afternoon, the same setup, the northeasterly wind. And so we are talking about cool along the coast, just 5 degrees. 10 to 12 inland, 14 to 15 for the west coast. Chance of some drizzle in eastern parts of Labrador and in the west. And yes, guess what? The same setup again on Thursday. That northeast flow, which will mean brighter skies for the west coast, and those onshore winds for the east and northeast will keep temperatures once again in the 4 or 5 degree range. Should get back to the double digits central and west. Chance of drizzle once again in Lab West. The good news as we look at this long range pattern, note Friday, the area of high pressure, that blocking high, will actually move to the south. And that will at least shut down the RDF train and shut down that machine that is bringing in the northeast winds. Still a bit of a light variable wind, so I don't think we're looking at a massive jump in temperatures for Friday, Saturday into Sunday, Monday. But I do think we'll start to get into a little more in the way of sunshine along that Atlantic coastline. And Labrador, again, also brightening up as we move towards the Friday, Saturday, Sunday time period.
All right then, let us meet our athlete of the day. And there she is, Kendra Clark from Marystown. She's 6 years old, plays with the Marystown Mariners in the Timbit division.
She enjoys playing hockey with her friends and works hard to go right after that puck and get it in the net.
Way to go, Kendra. You are our young athlete of the day.
Speaking of athletics, hundreds of young students were at the Newfoundland Labrador Sports Centre in St. John's for the 4th annual Jump Fest.
Yeah, the Heart and Stroke Foundation event is promoting cardiovascular health for kids through jump rope activities. It's trying to encourage healthy living to battle things like childhood obesity and poor diets.
It's great fun and it's great exercise. Stay with us. We'll be back right after the break.
Welcome back to Here and Now. Well, it's been a tough go for the automotive industry. Companies are being taken to task for false or misleading performance claims, from inaccurate fuel consumption rates to the emissions scandal. BMW is now being accused of overselling what one of its electric vehicles is capable of, then quietly changing its online advertising after the car failed to measure up to how it was marketed. The car's driver is going public. Here's Rosa Marcatelli.
When Ron Kleeman took us for a drive in his electric car, it was a short one.
Where does it say how far you can go?
So right there.
105. So you're always watching that.
Oh yeah.
To see when you're going to run out of power.
Yeah.
A few years ago, he was in the market for a reliable car that was good for the environment.
One of the main reasons I got the car was not to use gas anymore.
After a lot of research, he locked into a 4-year lease on a 2014 BMW i3. Right away, he noticed the vehicle couldn't travel the distance on a single battery charge BMW claimed it could. That distance is an electric car's equivalent to gas mileage.
I remember the car I bought, going up to 200 kilometers.
Internet archives show 11 months after he ordered the car, the company changed its online ad for the i3, reducing that distance from a maximum of 200 to 160 kilometers. That's a 20% decrease without notifying owners.
Clearly false advertising.
BMW won't say why it changed its online ad, but says the range on electric vehicles can be significantly impacted by driver behavior, the vehicle's external environment, and the consumption of onboard features. Josephine Palumbo is with Canada's Competition Bureau.
Important information should never be buried in fine print or disclaimers. If you're going to rely on performance claims, then ensure you have adequate and proper tests in place prior to making those representations.
There are now more than 30,000 electric vehicles on Canadian roads. A record number of them were sold last year. In this case, BMW offered Ron Kleeman $5,000 towards the purchase of a new vehicle as a goodwill gesture. He declined that offer, saying he's not interested in another BMW. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
In international news, the president-elect of France fulfilled his first duty today on a day that means a lot to his country and Europe. Emmanuel Macron joined the man he'll replace to mark VE Day, the day the Second World War ended in Europe. Macron scored a solid victory yesterday over his extreme nationalist opponent, Marine Le Pen. But demonstrations are already being held against his policies, which are seen as too friendly to business. Macron will be sworn in on Sunday.
While the company behind Coach handbags is buying rival Kate Spade for $2.4 billion US.
Coach's CEO says the deal will give the company a way to reach younger consumers and drive long-term growth. The company says it will keep the Kate Spade brand, but will be cutting back on online flash sales and wholesale offerings.
The deal comes after Coach's $500 million acquisition of designer shoe company Stuart Weitzman. We'll be right back.
Welcome back once again. A family of Syrian refugees is paying tribute to Justin Trudeau in an unusual way.
Husband says, how about if we name the boy Justin Trudeau like him? I was a little bit shocked. Then I said, yes, there is no problem. It will be like a small thank you for Justin Trudeau.
Meet Justin Trudeau, his parents who wanted to name their baby after the man who made it possible for them to come to Canada. He was born in Calgary on Thursday, just over a year after his parents first arrived in the country. And he's not the first baby to be named in tribute to the Prime Minister. He's a cutie. Who knows, maybe one day he'll be able to meet his namesake.
Maybe one day he'll have his namesake's hair.
So I guess the first name Justin, the middle name Trudeau, is that?
I guess that's how they...
Aw.
Cute for sure. Okay, have a look at the forecast tomorrow. Northeast coast, Atlantic coastline, not so good. The southwest coast, as warm as 14, even 15 towards the Port-au-Port Peninsula tomorrow, maybe even a little bit warmer than that. And yeah, showers in Labrador City, though those will clear. And I want you to take a good look there at the map of Newfoundland and then tell me what you see when you look at this ice pan.
Huh.
Something familiar, perhaps?
That's
looks like the
amazing.
Avalon Peninsula is about to break off there.
Yeah, that's right. And folks online saying things like, yeah, the Avalon looks like maybe it had a few drinks. They're looking a little wobbly there. And also, some folks are saying, what about the Buren? Although it looks like the boot is maybe there just underwater. But
Great shot. Thanks, Jordan, for sending that along. And before we move along, you have something to remind us of tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow night we're doing a Facebook Live event with the Premier, so he's going to be taking questions from anyone who wants to write them in. We'll get through as many of them as we can. And it starts tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Newfoundland time, half an hour earlier in most of Labrador. And yeah, so hopefully you can tune in right after Here Now tomorrow night.
Right after the show. Thanks for being with us, everyone. See you tomorrow.
Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.